The Republican Party is experiencing a massive surge in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because it appears that Republicans are surging in Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's right. Despite what some Democrats may claim about the current state of the race, they are in deep trouble in Pennsylvania. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say Democrats could be facing a complete disaster in Pennsylvania. Now, I am not saying that means that Trump's for sure going to win Pennsylvania by 15 points or it's a foregone conclusion that he'll win, but as of now, it's looking real bad for Democrats. Look at this. We have updated voter registration numbers out of Pennsylvania, and the Democrat Party got the living shit kicked out of them. Look at this. Republicans gained in just 1 week 27,000 new voters. Democrats gained only 12,000. That's not a misquote. That's not a typo. The Republican Party out-registered Democrats 2-1 in just 1 week. Now, I understand that with voter registration, especially in a state like Pennsylvania, it can be misleading. For those that don't know, there are a bunch of ancestral Democrats, especially in Western Pennsylvania. That means these are people that have voted Republican for like 20 years now, but they still register as Democrat. And there's a good chance that a chunk of these voters, yeah, there probably are former Democrats that are becoming Republicans. I get that. But people have looked inside of the numbers even further, and it's apparent that it's not just Democrats becoming Republicans. No. Republicans are getting brand new voters, people that have never voted ever, to register. So it's not just, oh, it's a couple thousand new voters, but like 20,000 former Democrats that were already voting Republican. No, these people are new voters. These are people that have never voted, or they might have voted 30 years ago. But that's it. This is just 1 week of voter registration, by the way. We're not talking about a month. In 1 week, Republicans out-registered Democrats by 15,000 voters. That's a big deal because that's not a small margin. If this was over the span of a year, okay, yeah, that would be tiny. But in the span of 1 week, Republicans out-registered Democrats this much? If I'm a Democrat operative, I would be panicking because we're not talking about a small swing. We're talking about a gap of 15,000 voters in Pennsylvania. Which, by the way, if the election's close, this could be the difference between a Trump win or a Harris victory. That's why this is a big deal. That's why it's just shocking that it was this big of a gap. For crying out loud, apparently this was a brand new record set by the GOP in Pennsylvania. I mean, it's a large number, 27,000 new voters. Swings like that don't usually happen, especially in Pennsylvania. It might happen over the span of a couple of weeks, but not in 1 week. You don't see swings like this at all. But fine, voter registration isn't everything, especially in Pennsylvania. It can be misleading because these could be ancestral Democrats becoming Republicans, even though we have metrics to indicate, no, it's not just ancestral Democrats from Westmoreland County that are becoming Republicans. No, it's new voters. But fine. I guess the possibility that this is a complete fluke, even though it's been a consistent trend for like, what, 10 years now? It's just accelerating now, but fine. Voter registration isn't everything. Well, guess what? We have other metrics to indicate, yeah, Democrats have a huge problem in Pennsylvania. Now, I know we've gone over this graph a million times. For those that don't know, this is the early voting data out of Pennsylvania compared to 2020, 2022, etc. And right now, by some miracle, it's getting even worse for Democrats. And funny enough, it's actually updating as I speak, so it might actually get even worse for them. But point is, as of yesterday, Republicans made up just below 29% of the early vote. Yeah, just below 29%. Just for some context, back in 2022, Republicans made up only 21% of the early vote. And in 2020, they made up 23%. Yeah. And the Democrats, they made up 65%, 69%, and now they make up less than 62% of the early vote. Well, scratch what I just said, because the numbers just updated, and it got even worse for Democrats. Look at this. Just like 5 seconds ago, it was roughly 61.5% Democrat and 28.5% Republican. Now, it's below 61% Democrat and just slightly above 29% Republican. Yeah. So, it's gotten even worse for Democrats. It just updated. By some miracle, it got even worse for them. And you look at the trends, it's not just Republicans had one really good day of early voting and that's why they're out of the blue surging. No. Every single day, Republicans keep going up and up and up in early voting. Look at this. Just a week ago, on the 15th, it was barely 24% Republican and 67% Democrat. Now, Democrats are barely below 61%, and Republicans are slightly above 29% of the early vote. Yeah, it shifted that Republican in just 1 week, and it's consistent every day. Republicans go up by 1%, 0.5%, 1%, etc. It just keeps going up for Republicans, while Democrats, they keep going down. Yeah, it's a consistent trend. If this continues, by the way, we could potentially see Democrats in the mid to low 50s and Republicans in the mid 30s, which compared to 2020 and 2022, you're talking about like a 12-point shift towards the GOP in just what, 2 years? Just in 4 years? A 12-point shift in early voting towards the GOP is awful for Dems. Because Democrats back in 2022 and 2020, especially in Pennsylvania, they've relied heavily on having a huge firewall. And right now, they're not getting that firewall. In fact, they're getting crushed compared to 22, compared to 2020. And yeah, they're going to win the early vote in Pennsylvania. Like, I'm not saying Trump's going to magically win the early vote, but if Republicans are making up like 35% of the early vote in Pennsylvania, and it could potentially get worse, who knows, but even if it stays at roughly 29%, like let's say Democrats by some miracle have a last second surge, I guess that's possible even though the trends indicate that's not the case, but fine. Let's just say by some miracle the absentee requests and the returns, they magically trend towards the Democrat Party. Even in that scenario, Republicans are outperforming their numbers from 2022 and 2020 by a lot. And Democrats would have to gain so much that I don't think it's even possible. So no matter what happens, Republicans have already improved their percent of the early vote compared to 2020, compared to 2022 by a lot. And for Democrats to make it even close to 2020, they have to have a miracle happen the last week. And I'm not talking about a small shift. You're talking about you have to have the early vote shift like 5 to 6 points Democrat in a week. Is that possible? Maybe. But the current trends suggest that's not going to happen. Democrats are just going to keep going down, while Republicans, they're going to keep going up. And they could end up with roughly 35% of the early vote. It could be a little bit less, like 32, 33%, which I think is possible as well, but either way, even if it's only 31%, hell, even 29%, at that point, Democrats would need a surge on election day to maybe, just maybe, win Pennsylvania. But do you really think these voters are going to vote on election day? I mean, these same voters have been voting early for years now. And I know some will vote on election day, I get that, but do you really think there's enough Democrats out there that are magically realizing, oh, wait a minute, I can vote on election day? I don't think so. There's a chunk, obviously, they're going to vote on election day now, but do you think it's enough to overcome this big of a swing in early voting? I don't think so. I mean, in 2022, Democrats had an early vote lead of like 600,000 ballots. Right now, Democrats are up by only 330,000. Yeah, they are half of where they were back in 2022. And they might end up with like a lead of roughly 400,000 votes, 500,000, somewhere in that range, which is less than 2022 and half, yes, half of what it was back in 2020. You cannot tell me with a straight face that this is actually really good news for the GOP, or Democrats, I should say. It's not. If these trends continue, Republicans are going to win Pennsylvania quite easily. I'm not saying they for sure will, but these trends are just so bad for Democrats that I don't see how anyone could say, yeah, this is actually really good news for the Democrat Party, but fine. Early voting isn't everything, just like voter registration isn't everything. Well, guess what? Polling right now has Trump winning Pennsylvania by a point. Yeah. Right now, it is Trump +1 on the RCP average in Pennsylvania. And that's with the New York Times having Harris +3, Quinnipiac Harris +2, UMass Harris +1. Every other poll outside of those three, they show a Trump lead in Pennsylvania. And the three most recent pollsters, Trafalgar, Atlas Intel, Rasmussen, and I know people are just like say, oh, Trafalgar's a bad pollster, same with Rasmussen, but you go back to their track record back in 2020, yeah, sometimes they have some misses here and there, but they're not terrible like some people claim they are. But either way, they all have Trump winning by 3 points, including Atlas Intel, which everyone agrees, at least most people agree, they're one of the best pollsters out there. And they have Trump winning by 3. But fine, let's just say that's a fluke. Well, guess what? TIPP, which is another good pollster, Trump +1. Emerson, Trump +1. Insider Advantage, Trump +2. The Wall Street Journal, Trump +1. Yeah, so it's every other pollster except the New York Times, which is a shit pollster. Quinnipiac is even worse. And UMass has never polled Pennsylvania. So why are they polling now? I don't know. But either way, the majority of the polls are showing Trump is winning Pennsylvania by a point, or even more, like 2 to 3 points. And you compare that to 2020, and in the middle of October, it was Biden +4, Biden +5 in Pennsylvania. He won the state by roughly a point. That's a 3-point miss. And in 2016, it was even worse. Look at this. Clinton +8, Clinton +9, +6, +5, +5. Trump won the state by a point. That's like a 5 to 6 point miss in Pennsylvania in 2016 and 2020. Yeah. It's the same time frame as today, the middle of October, and Trump's currently leading. I'm not saying this means there's going to be a 5-point miss and Trump's going to win Pennsylvania by 5 to 6 points, but these numbers strongly suggest he's the favorite to win Pennsylvania. Just like the early voting's bad for Democrats, that shows Democrats are in trouble in PA. Voter registration looks good for Republicans. That more than likely means he's going to win Pennsylvania. Because it's not just one metric, it's everything. Early voting, voter registration, the polling. The polling right now is clearly trending towards Trump, and he's already winning Pennsylvania. And that's with some big outliers, the New York Times pushing Harris +3. Does this mean for sure Trump's going to win Pennsylvania? Of course not. You cannot get complacent. But these numbers are so bad for Democrats that I just don't see how Trump is not the favorite in Pennsylvania. It's clear right now, if the election was held today, he would win Pennsylvania. And it's getting just kind of late. I just don't see how Democrats have this magical recovery in early voting. Is it possible? Maybe. But it's October 23rd. I just don't think there's enough time for Democrats to have a huge surge in Pennsylvania. Is it possible? I guess. But it does not look good for Harris whatsoever. It's not just one metric that's bad for her. It's everything. Early voting, voter registration, the polling. Everything. Everything is bad for Harris right now in Pennsylvania. Now, does it mean Trump's going to win by 50? No. But it's clear he is the favorite. He is the favorite to carry Pennsylvania come November. But anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.